Hey guys, and welcome to episode 4 of the Unarmed Podcast. We've talked a lot already. We talked about the impact that people have made on me. We talked about the accident. We talked about the comeback. And one of the hardest parts throughout this entire journey has been this specific portion that I'll be talking about right now. So where I left off on the last episode was basically me saying that I was very heavily involved in CrossFit. I no longer wanted to be doing my desk job because I wanted to put myself into CrossFit full force. I wanted to be doing CrossFit and nothing else. Daniel ended up getting a job offer in Florida for a refrigeration tech, which is something he was doing. It's what he went to school for. And when he told me that he got a job offer in Florida, I was like, no, you're crazy. When am I ever going to be able to get to see you? You're going to be all the way in Florida. I'll be over here in Texas. And he was like, no. I'm not saying that I'm going to move there and do this on my own. I'm asking you to come with me. Let's make this move together. And I was excited because our relationship wasn't doing so well at that point. And none of it had to do with my arm. It was just other problems that we were dealing with. And the relationship was shaky. It was very, very shaky at that time. And I thought that me moving with him would be great for us. It would push us into a better place in our relationship. We would be doing this move together. Neither of us had ever lived outside of Texas. This was going to be a huge move for us. And I decided to take the plunge and move with him. So I had to leave my job at Rackspace. I was hoping that maybe there was some way that I could work remotely for them, but that just wasn't going to happen. They don't do that. So I had to completely leave Rackspace. I was worried because at that time I was the only one working. Daniel wasn't working, so I was the one keeping us financially stable. And my job was a great job. It paid really well too. So I was really afraid to leave that income. But I was also excited for these new ventures that we were about to have. So we packed up everything. We got our 2 dogs, Lola and Briggs, at that time, and we left. We left to Florida, and my mind was more so thinking, you're not going to get a job right off the bat. Daniel's going to be working. We should be okay with just him working. You need to focus completely on CrossFit. Before I even found us an apartment, I found a CrossFit box. They gave us the city in which we were going to be living in. I looked for the best CrossFit box in that city, which was West Palm Beach. And I worked the apartment around the CrossFit box. Like, this was my priority. I was going to train for hours a day, and I was going to make myself the best athlete I could ever be. So we moved to Florida. I chose Crazy Train CrossFit out of West Palm Beach, Florida. And the reason that I chose Crazy Train was because when I went on their website, I saw that they had an athlete by the name of Marcus Hayward. And Marcus was is Marcus an above? Yeah, he's above. He's an above the knee amputee. And as soon as I saw that they had him, I was like, yes, that's my sign that I need to be going there. So we moved in. My parents helped us move in. They drove with us to Florida, and then we flew them back. So we took my parents to the airport on the day that they were leaving. We were dressed in our workout clothes, and we went straight to CrossFit. And I loved it. I loved the coaches. I loved the box. I loved how big the box was. I loved the people. I hated the heat and the humidity in Florida, but I liked it. So I stayed. And from that day forward, I was in that box every single day for hours a day. It first went from me taking the regular hourly classes that they offer to me coaching. I started coaching there for a little bit, and then that turned into me working out there on my own. And that's how I liked it at that time. I would go into the gym hours before my class came that I needed to coach, and I went in there and I trained at least 3 to 4 hours. I had a good warm up. I had a nice long warm up. I did my strength. I did my WOD. I did extra work at the end. I did everything I could to train hard. I worked on my lifts. I worked on improving my weights that I was lifting. I worked on my strength, on my endurance. I worked on everything. And I started competing more too once I was here in Florida. I probably did 2 competitions in San Antonio. I did way more once I came here to Florida. And this was my concern. To me, this was my calling. You're supposed to be an athlete. You're supposed to be a competitive athlete, and you're supposed to be this athlete for a reason. You're here to show people that anything can be done. And that's what was in my head. That was my meaning. That was my purpose in life, was to be this CrossFit athlete that proved to people that anything was possible. And so I started competing. And, there was this whole adaptive movement going on, meaning all these adaptive athletes were coming into this CrossFit world, CrossFit community. And it's funny, one of my friends, Lindsay, who is also an adaptive athlete, she created this meme. Is it a Zoolander movie? I think it's like a scene from the Zoolander movie. And it's like 2 people whispering to themselves, and they're like, oh my God, CrossFit adaptive athletes, they're so hot right now. And it couldn't be more freaking true. It was this trend, this fad that was going on in CrossFit, where adaptive athletes, such as myself, were the in thing. People wanted them at their events. People wanted to post about them. Like, we were popular. Like, it was such a fad. Like, it was ridiculous now that I think about it. Back then it wasn't ridiculous. Back then it was fucking cool that everybody wanted us to compete, that everybody was cheering for us, and that we were popular back then. And now it's just a fucking circus to me when I look at it. But, it became this fad. It became very popular, competition-wise. When you look at people like myself, I'm not the only type of amputee out there. There are people from all walks of life, people in wheelchairs, people with multiple amputations. Like, there's just different types of things going on with different people. And you can't throw these people into one room and tell them to do the same workout the same way, because it's not going to happen. And that's basically what these competitions at that time were doing. They were throwing us all into a room. They were giving us a workout, and they were telling us to go, just go. And we were all being scored the same way, which is not fair. If you put me up against a girl who has 2 arms, but she's missing her leg, and you have us doing clean and jerks, you think I'm gonna beat the girl with 2 arms doing clean and jerks? Hell no. No, but yet you're scoring me the same way? Bro, doesn't make any sense. People have figured out things along the way. There's a great program called WheelWOD that's really great at doing the scoring system and figuring out how things have worked. But that's now. Back then, that's not how it happened. And so it became very toxic for me, this whole CrossFit community. It became very, very toxic for me. It was more of a job than it was fun anymore for me. And that's my fault. That's nobody's fault but my own. I made CrossFit a job for myself, and I took the fun out of it for myself. There's no one else to blame but me. And I made it toxic on myself. And I was trying so hard. And during this time is also when my social media went through the fucking roof. Just from me sharing videos of me doing a snatch, me doing a deadlift, and I'm doing it with one arm. Like, those videos went so viral that the numbers on Facebook and Instagram were going sky high. Like, it was getting insane. I couldn't believe the type of coverage I was getting because I had one arm and I was doing CrossFit. Like, it wasn't, to me, it was normal what I was doing. Like, nobody else is doing this. Like, I don't get it. What's so intriguing about this? And when that started happening, that took over me as well. I started seeing a need for me to have to post me doing a snatch or me doing a deadlift. I had to post those things because that's why these people were following me in the first place. So if I want to keep them around and keep gaining followers and keep getting likes and comments, then I gotta keep pumping out that type of stuff for them. I gotta keep doing what I'm doing. And that just, I mean, you're probably guessing right about now. Like, that's the wrong thing to do. And if that's what you're doing on Instagram or Facebook right now, I can tell you right now that you better fucking stop what you're doing. Stop now. Let me tell you something. Instagram and Facebook mean nothing. Nothing. They are such great outlets and they can bring such good opportunities, but they can bring just as much bad as they will good, if not more bad than they will good. Guaranteed. Don't come at me that it's the best app in the fucking world. Shut the fuck up. No, it's not. It's doing more harm to you than it will ever do good for you. I let this number of followers get in my head. I let the likes and the comments get in my head. I let the popularity get to my head. I never stopped being humble. I will say that. I never stopped being humble. To this day, I will never stop being humble. But internally, these things were in my head. These things were what I was thinking about. And so as I kept competing, I kept breaking myself down day by day. And when I say that I was breaking myself down, I was breaking my body down day by day. People told me at the very beginning, this is the wrong sport for you to be doing. You should be doing something else. I still disagree with them in this day and this time, but I can also see now what they meant by it. And what they meant by it was, should you really be lifting this barbell with these weights overhead? Could you not simply do it with a dumbbell and risk hurting your shoulder? Should you be doing this versus this? I see it now. Back then I didn't see it because I was so stubborn. And I said to myself, either you're jealous or something that I'm able to do this and you're not able to do this. And I'm going to keep doing it this way because I can. And that hurt me in the end because it was breaking my body down little by little. And I started seeing that I was getting hurt and injured more and more and more. And even though I got injured, I never gave myself the amount of rest time that I should have been giving myself. I went right back at it and I kept hurting myself further and damaging my body further. And I didn't go about things the right way whatsoever. And it's funny because I wouldn't have seen that till I had Joaquin. I wouldn't have seen or had this perception of what I was doing back then until I got pregnant and had Joaquin. I see things very, very differently now. I don't see them the way I used to see them back then anymore. I hardly pick up a barbell. Hardly. If I pick up a barbell, it's because I'm doing back squats, front squats, maybe a clean here and there. But for the most part, I'm using dumbbells and I'm using kettlebells. I'm getting older. And even then, I was getting older. I was never getting any younger. And you have to realize that your body is not the same as it was 2, 3, 5 years ago, whatever you want to say, but it's not the same. Your body is going to get older. And it came to a point where I kept hurting myself in CrossFit. And I thought, maybe it's time I change it up. Maybe it's time that I need a change. So my good friend Natalie Boulay was in the Paralympics and she was throwing discus and she was doing amazing. And I said, maybe I should try out for the Paralympics. Maybe I should try doing something, in that category. And so I reached out to her and she invited me over to her house one day because she lives here in South Florida as well. She invited me over to her house and her coach at that time was there. His name's Scott Danberg, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not too sure on the last name, but his first name was Scott. And she said, come over, come see what we do. Let him have a look at you and let's see what he says. I said, okay. She said that she had showed him a few videos of me working out and that he said, I can definitely work with that. So I went over to her house. I met Scott and they started doing her warm up. She was warming up. She threw discus. So they had the discs there. They were going through her warm up. And Scott was like, I want you to follow everything Natalie does. I want to see how you move. I want to see how you do things. See if I have any natural talent. So I started doing things and I sucked at the discus. I sucked big time. But Scott did say, I think we can really find something for you in the Paralympics. I think you'd be really great. We just need to find what works for you. And so I kept in contact with Scott and he ended up reaching out to me that the Paralympics had let out a list of the type of athletes that they needed. And in my category, because the Paralympics is divided up into categories based on your amputation or your situation, and based on my category, they needed javelin throwers. And I was like, what the hell is a javelin? Like, I had no clue what this was. And I started YouTubing it and I was like, holy moly, like that looks intense. Like, and I wasn't watching the Paralympic version. Like, I was fucking watching the Olympic version of javelin throwing. And these girls that were throwing these javelins were ripped and they were buff. Like, they were huge. They were so freaking athletic, so tall, and all the power that they had when they were throwing these javelins, it was insane. But the same little light that clicked when I saw a Tough Mudder video back when I was in college, that same little light clicked when I started watching these videos of these girls throwing javelin. Like, this sport looked so hardcore to me that I was like, yes. Challenge accepted. Yes, I'll do it. Like, sign me up. What do I need to do? And so he said, all right, we are going to go to this university where they have some training grounds there specifically for javelin. I want you to come out. I think I was going out 2 times a week. I was meeting up with another athlete that he had, and we were going to start my training. And one of the first things that I was told was, you need to stop doing CrossFit. And while I was happy about it because I was already getting so injured in CrossFit, I was kind of pissed about it too. Like, you can't take that sport away from me. Like, that sport made me. It's not what made me, but at the time, that's what I thought. I thought that sport made me. I am CrossFit. You can't take that away from me. And I had to. If I wanted to be fully committed into throwing javelin, if I wanted to make the Paralympic team, if I wanted to go to the Olympics, I needed to stop doing CrossFit. I think he ended up narrowing it down to 1 day of CrossFit a week. The rest was specifically the training protocol that he gave me to work on. And so I went. I went those 2 times a week. And I will say that nothing has ever humbled me more than throwing that javelin. For me, CrossFit, even though it took time for me to get to a level to where I thought I was a pretty good athlete, it didn't take very, very long. I was able to build up endurance and strength pretty quickly as I went with the right nutrition and everything like that. And with javelin, I couldn't seem to catch a fucking break. Nothing I did was making that javelin go the way Scott needed it to go or needed to see it going. And when I tell you that it took work, like weeks worth of work would sometimes make me feel like I got nowhere. I mean, this specific sport did a number on my shoulder and my arm because of the way that you have to position your arm. If you've never seen a javelin being thrown in the Olympics, go to YouTube right now, pause this podcast, go to YouTube and look up because I'm female, you can look at whatever you want, but the female ones are pretty badass. Look up the female javelin throwers in the Olympics and look at what their arm does and look at the intensity and the strength that they put behind each throw. It's insane. It is literally insane what they do to make that javelin go as far as it goes. And so I think at the time, my goal was to hit, was it 30 meters? I want to say it was 30. Like to be able to qualify for at least the B team. There was an A team and a B team in the Paralympics. To at least be able to qualify for the B team, if I'm not mistaken, you had to hit at least 30 meters. I was nowhere fucking near 30 meters. And it pissed me off. And it pissed me off because I was doing exactly what I needed to be doing. I was doing exactly what I was told to do every single day. Even if I wasn't at the track with Scott, my coach, those 2 days out of the week, I was at home with my javelin and with my training tools, doing the stretches, doing the movements, doing everything I had to fucking do so that I could be great at that sport. And it sucked. It sucked big time. And it came to a point where he signed me up basically for a qualifying event in Arizona, I believe. And I was so nervous because in my head, I knew I was not ready. I think I hit maybe 20, 22 meters, but that's not 30. That's far from 30. But I think even the 20 or 22 he said would get them to look at me or something along those lines. And so I signed up for that qualifier and I was set to go. And I was a nervous wreck. But I kept training every single day that led up to that moment or that moment in time that I was going to go try and qualify to be on Team USA. That's a big deal for me. That was a huge deal for me to be able to say, I am on Team USA. I think that's what I wanted more than anything. I wanted to wear those t-shirts or have that uniform. Like I wanted that. I wanted to be able to represent my country in the Paralympics. I wanted that so bad. And so a week before flying out to Arizona, I was at the CrossFit box and I was there hours before I had to coach. And I was doing a warm-up to start doing my throwing drills because a lot of what I had to do, I didn't need to be outdoors in an open space to throw javelin. Like it was stuff that I can do indoors. So I started warming up, and one of the warm-ups was basically like a skip, but you had to jump really high with these skips. So I was doing that, and I went down one way, and as I was coming back, my ankle just twisted. I came down and my ankle just twisted. And I was like, oh no, like you've got to be fucking kidding me, right? Like you're kidding me right now. And it hurt so bad, like instant pain. I felt like I was gonna faint or black out. Like it was so incredibly painful. I had to like crawl my way to a bench that was there so I could sit down. I grabbed my phone and I called Daniel. And I said, I think I broke something in my foot. Like, you need to come get me right now, because he worked right down the street. I said, you need to come get me right now. Like, seriously, I think I broke something. So he came, he picked me up, he took me to like an urgent care center. And they did some x-rays and they're like, yeah, you absolutely broke your foot. And it doesn't look very good. Like, you need to go to a specialist for this. We can't do anything here for you besides give me pain medication. So I set up an appointment with a specialist. Thank God that my good friend Ellie, who used to be one of the owners at Crazy Train CrossFit, gave me the information for this surgeon. I can't remember his name now, but I got so lucky with him. I went in, I made an appointment to see him. I went in to see him. They took some x-rays of their own, and he came back and I was like, please tell me that this isn't that bad and that I can go compete next week and qualify. Like, please tell me that I have enough time to heal from here to there and to compete. And he's like, no, like, what you have is called a Jones fracture. And that is probably one of the worst fractures that you could ever have in your foot. Like, this is going to take surgery, and you're going to need a plate and screws in order to fix this. And you are going to need months worth of rest time in order for you to recover and heal the right way. And I just broke down. I started crying. Like, I couldn't contain what I was feeling when he told me that. Like, to me, this just crushed my dreams. Like, you just took, I had this qualifier in the palm of my hand. I had it right there. I was so close to being able to go get my chance to make Team USA, and it was taken right from the palm of my hand in an instant. And it crushed me. It really, really crushed me. And on top of that, they started giving me the prices of what this surgery was going to cost me and just what I had to pay up front. And at that time, with only Daniel working, like, I couldn't afford that. And that broke me down even more, because I knew I needed this surgery in order to fix my foot. And I couldn't afford to get this surgery. Luckily, my mom stepped in and she paid the upfront cost that we needed to pay in order to start getting pre-op going and all that, and get the go for surgery. And so my mom paid for that. I went in for surgery. I got the surgery. Till this day, I still have the plate and the screws, but I had such a badass surgeon that I don't even feel that I have a plate and 6 screws in my foot. I get around just fine. I work out just fine with those things in there. The recovery time was the worst. And it was in this recovery time that I started slipping into a depression. I started slipping into a depression because I was not working out. I was not able to post anything because I wasn't working out, and all I would post was me working out. And in my head, I had to post those things. I have to post. I have to keep these followers around. I have to keep my engagement up. I just had the wrong mindset. I really had the wrong mindset. That's not what was important at the time, but in my head at that time, it was of the utmost importance to keep followers and keep engagement. And because of that, I fell into a depression. I cried every single day. I cried every single night. Daniel and I would get into so many fights at this point because I lost a ton of confidence because I was getting myself around on this little scooter that looked ridiculous. I lost a ton of confidence in myself. I wasn't working out. I was gaining weight because I wasn't doing anything. I was just sitting on the couch, or I spent the majority of my time sleeping because I didn't want to think about how much of a failure I fucking was. And it sucked. It really, really sucked. The times that I wasn't sleeping, I would tell myself, who are you? Like, who are you right now? Like, you're nobody right now. You're doing nothing. You suck right now. And I kept feeding that to myself every day and every night, and it just made it worse and worse and worse. And I was also getting coached by my friend Zach Caswell at the time. And he didn't live in Florida, but he would fly into town every so often because he had a lot of athletes here in Florida. And he flew in. He either texted me or called me to check on me. And I just, I could be very real with Zach. And I told him, I'm not doing well because I'm not doing anything. And I really feel like I need to be doing something. Like, I can't be in this apartment anymore. Like, the silence is hurting me. It's making me get into my head. And so he said, get your ass to the gym. You can do stuff. There's stuff you can do. You're just not doing it. And so I put on my workout clothes. It took me 20 fucking minutes, like it did everything else, to hop my way into the truck, get the scooter into the truck, all that jazz. I drove to the gym, and he started showing me things that I can do, things that I would have never thought of on my own. And that helped. That slowly started giving me my confidence back. That slowly started getting my mind right again and getting that negative talk out of my head of me telling myself that I sucked and that I'm worthless. This helped me. It helped me tremendously. And so I kept going. I started training every day, even with the cast, even when the cast was off and I had like a boot, I still trained in that boot. I trained in that cast. I kept going. I kept making my upper body stronger. I did everything I could to keep myself going after Zach showed me. It's not even that he showed me. I think it's just that he made me go in. And he basically told me, like, shut the fuck up and start. Just start. And I think that's all that I needed because I wasn't getting that from anybody else. And so I kept training. My foot completely healed. Once it completely healed, I got invited to compete at Rush Club. I don't think Rush Club exists anymore. I may be wrong. But at that time, there was this huge event called Rush Club. And what Rush Club was, it was kind of like Fight Club, except you're not fighting. You're doing CrossFit. They would have a main event. They would have their main event of two athletes going head to head. And leading up to that main event, I think they would have a team event where two teams competed against each other. And they had other little events leading up to the main event. And I got offered the opportunity to be a part of the main event, along with my good friend Kendra Bailey. Kendra is the woman who showed me that one arm was okay and doing CrossFit with one arm was possible. She was one of the first athletes that Daniel showed me after the surgery, showing me her doing a clean. And, that's just all the proof I needed right there in that picture that I was going to be able to do great things. And so I had the opportunity to go against Kendra. And I was super stoked about it. Like, Kendra was my good friend. I loved her to death. Like, this was going to be awesome. So I said, yes, sign me up. And so I got signed up for that. And then Daniel and I were lucky enough to purchase our first home together. And that completely threw off all the training that I had been doing for Rush Club. My training completely stopped for about a week or two, completely. Because if you've purchased a home, you know how stressful it is, and all the paperwork and the moving in and everything. It's just a stressful time. And so I completely stopped. And I remember Zach telling me, like, you need to be doing something. You need to be running. You need to be doing something. And I was like, no, like, this is important right now. Like, this house, me and Daniel, this is what is important to me right now. And I'm glad, even saying it now, I'm glad that I can kind of go back and see that I was getting better already, mentally, getting myself out of all the negativity and making Instagram and Facebook my priority in life. And so I didn't train for those 2 weeks. And I think maybe a couple of days before our flight, I started training again, but that was just a couple of days. And so I showed up to Rush Club. I hadn't seen Kendra in a while. I hadn't seen her in a long while. I was very confident, I'll say. I was very confident going into this competition because I had competed against Kendra in another competition in Texas, and I beat her. So I was like, if I beat her then, I can do it again. Like, I can definitely do it again. So I went in there pretty confident. And then we got to the hotel, and me and Daniel go to the bar for a drink. And I invite Kendra down. And Kendra comes down, and I'm watching her walk up to the bar, and I'm like, holy shit. She is ripped. Like muscles everywhere. And I was like, holy hell, girl, like, you look amazing. And she started telling us about, her getting sober and her really getting her nutrition right again. And my confidence went from 100 to 0 really fucking fast just by seeing her and how amazing and strong she looked. And I was like, shit. So that got in my head. And then we were on a car ride. We did a podcast for someone's channel before the competition, like a day before. And we were driving back from that podcast. And I was sitting next to her in the back seat, and she looked over me and she said, I'm going to beat you. And I'm going to beat you really bad. And I was like, oh, fuck, shit. And I was like, okay, like she was dead serious. Like, not a smile on her face, no laugh. Because I was kind of laughing, like, No, she was dead serious. Looked me in the eye and said, I'm going to beat you. My confidence was already at fucking 0. It's like negative 100 now. I was like, whoa, like, this girl is serious right now. And so it came the day of Rush Club, the day of the event, and I had put all this pressure on myself, thinking this event is really hyped up. Like, the coverage it gets, or that it got, was insane. This event was very, very hyped up. Everybody knew about this event, and everybody knew that me and Kendra were the main event. I felt like, and Kendra is always very quiet on social media. She's not one to post or anything like that. She's very quiet about everything she does, which I fucking love her for. And so everyone just knew me. Krystal. Krystal's a badass. She's going to go. She's going to beat her. Look at Krystal. Look what she can do on Instagram and everything. But little did they know what Kendra was capable of and what Kendra could do. But it's because she wasn't posting it that they didn't know. So I initially put all this pressure on myself for that one competition, thinking I have to win this competition because everyone is expecting me to win. Everyone is putting their money on me. Nobody fucking bet money on this thing. I'm just saying figuratively, but everyone has their money on me for this event. Everyone is saying it's going to be me. So I need to win this event. And if you don't win this event, that's probably the fucking end of you. And so I warmed up the best I could. It was very cold that day. I warmed up. I was extremely, extremely nervous. I could hear the crowd in that little stadium. Like, I could hear the crowd. I could hear the hype for what was about to happen. And they started announcing us, and they announced Kendra first. And that just made me even fucking more nervous because I was the last one. Like, I'm the last one to come out and make a presence. And I was like, no, God. So they play a song. We had to choose a song for us to walk out to. They play my song. I walk out there. Kendra walked out there with so much fucking confidence. She looked so badass. And I was like, shit, I need to look like that. So I walk out and I fucking trip. I don't fall, but I trip over a barbell. I stayed standing up, but I fucking tripped on it. It was live too. They were doing coverage live on this fucking event and I trip. So there I go. I trip. And I'm like, oh shit. Like it was just like my confidence just kept going lower and lower and lower and lower. If you haven't guessed by now, I fucking lost. I lost big time. People will say like, you had her at a point, you had her. And I feel like I did. I felt like I was keeping up pretty well at the beginning. It wasn't until, so this workout, I can't remember the workout exactly, but this workout had kettlebell thrusters, it had box jumps, it had barbell cleans, it had kettlebell swings, it had jump rope, which we use the RX Smart Gear mono rope that if you follow me, you'll know what jump rope I'm talking about that I specifically use. We use that. And it was just a mixture of all those movements. And I felt like I had her. I was right there with her the whole time until it got to the second round of box jumps. Granted, I hadn't been training for 2 weeks straight. And when I warmed up for this workout, I hardly did anything to warm up. I was just trying to keep warm because it was so cold outside. And I think we did the thrusters, and straight from the thrusters, you go into the second round of box jumps. I attempt to jump to go for that first box jump, and my shin scraped the shit out of the box, like took a layer or two of skin off my shin, and it hurt so bad. And if this has ever happened to you where you hit your shin on the box, it gets you mentally. It fucking gets you mentally so bad. It is so hard for you to shake that off and get right back to it. At least it was for me. I gave up after that. I will humbly tell you that I gave up. Everybody that was right next to me, to where I was competing was like, jump, Krystal, jump, keep going. And I was like, I looked at them and I shook my head. I was like, no. And I turned over and I watched Kendra beat me jump by jump by jump. And I just sat there and I watched her beat me. And I stood there and I said, you're fucking worthless. You're worthless, Krystal. And I didn't show it in my face. I kept a smile on my face. I congratulated Kendra. It was very well deserved. I knew she had worked so hard leading up to this day. And she earned it. She very much earned that win and that belt. They gave you kind of like those WWE belts that you get. That was the prize. She very much earned that belt. I didn't earn anything because I didn't put in the work to get there that I should have put in. And that beat me down even more. The depression that I was kind of trickling out of, I just fell right back into it. And it was just back to that talk of you're worthless, you're nothing in this world. Like you don't know who you are without this sport, and you're not good at this sport anymore. Like, just fucking face it, Krystal, you're not good anymore. And I went back to training like 2 days after that competition. I just needed to get back in the gym and lift some weights. Like, because to tell you the truth, it made me feel better just to get in there and work out. Like, just those endorphins alone will make me feel better. So I started working out. I did the programming that Zach had for me that day. And it was deadlifts at strength. And then the workout had some cleans involved in it. And so I was doing the deadlifts. And my lower back was feeling very tight with those deadlifts. And so I stopped. I told myself, just stop. Don't hurt yourself. Put the barbell away. Get ready for the workout. So I got ready for the workout. I did the first clean in the workout and it was fine. Like I felt a little pinch in my back, but nothing major. I went for the second one, still a little pinch, but nothing major. And then I went for the third clean and I just felt a little. And I let the barbell go and I said, fuck. Because I already knew what was going to come because I had already hurt my lower back before. I had already known what herniated discs felt like and I knew what was coming. Because it kind of takes time. If you've ever had a herniated disc, like it takes its time. Not a whole day or anything, but it takes, it takes a few minutes for it to work its way up to that pain that's just unbearable. So I started freaking out. I was like, all right, what do I do? Do I sit down? Do I lay down? Because I knew eventually I was going to end up in those positions. And I started stretching, which is probably the worst fucking thing I could have ever done for myself. But I started stretching. And then I started getting really scared and I started having a panic attack. I started sweating and everything because I knew what was coming. And so I kind of had a panic attack on my own there. Nobody was there. The gym was empty. So I left everything. I couldn't put everything away because I was already in so much pain. I basically had to crawl to my truck. And I texted Jenny, which was one of the coaches at the gym. I was like, Jenny, I left all my equipment out. I'm so sorry, but I just hurt my back. Like, I'm sorry. Like, would you be able to put my equipment away? And she's like, don't worry about it. Go home, rest up. So I go home and the drive home was horrible. I was in so much pain. I get home and it takes me what felt like hours to get myself into the front door because there's a little step that I had to step on to get in. It was the worst pain ever. I had had herniated discs before, but nothing like what I was feeling this day. I couldn't walk without crying or screaming. I couldn't lay down without crying or screaming. To sit down, are you fucking kidding me right now? Like you're putting a knife through my lower back. It was so bad. Daniel ended up finding a chiropractor who did after hours. He drove me to him like at 8 o'clock at night, maybe even later. And the chiropractor did some x-rays on me. And to stand up was very, very painful. And I had to stand up and I had to stand up straight for these x-rays. And it was so painful that I was just on the verge of passing out. I could feel it coming and it kind of gave me this surge of adrenaline. And I walked so quickly to a chair and I sat my ass down. And they were like, whoa, like, how did you just do that? And I was like, I'm going to faint. I'm going to faint right here, right now. And so they picked me up to take me to the restroom because I probably told them to wet my face or to give me some water. And I don't remember this, but Daniel says that my eyes started rolling to the back of my head and that he's like, Krystal, you got to stay here with us. And that I kind of snapped out of it and that I was like, why the fuck are you yelling at me? I don't remember that, but they took me to the restroom. They wet my face. They gave me some water. And I had told the chiropractor, like, I also haven't eaten anything. Like, I've just been in pain in bed till Daniel got home to bring me here. So luckily he had like a little sugar candy, and that brought me back to life. So I don't know if it was a mixture of the pain and my sugar levels being so low or whatever, but that little candy brought me back to life. I was in recovery from that for, I'd say, a good 3 months before I was able to walk straight again. It was such a tedious process. And by this point, I didn't care about fucking Instagram. I didn't care about Facebook. I didn't care about training. I said, Krystal, this is enough. Like, this was the last straw. It was the absolute last straw. You don't have to train 3 to 4 hours a day anymore. You don't have to compete if you don't want to compete. You don't have to post workout videos if you do not want to post workout videos. What you need to do What you need to do is get your fucking mind right and get your priorities straight. Your health is a priority. Your relationship is a priority. This house that you're in is a priority. CrossFit is no longer a priority. Instagram and Facebook are no longer a priority. And enough is enough. And I realized that after not being able to walk for 3 months. It took that one big injury for me to wake the fuck up and see what the real problems in life are, and to see what the real meaning of life was. And that's exactly what I did. I focused on me and Daniel. I focused on getting myself better. I didn't pick up any weights. If I did anything, I did body weight movements, and I worked my way slowly to getting back into everything. And I really had to sit down with myself and say, Krystal, what do you want in life more than anything? And when I thought about that, I thought about Daniel, and I saw us having a family together. Aside from the 3 dogs that we had at the time, I saw us with a family. And I said, a family is only going to come when you get your mind right, and when you get out of this mentality that social media is the one-all be-all and CrossFit is the one-all be-all. When you get your mind right, then you can get what you really want and what you're really envisioning right now, which is having a good relationship with Daniel and having a family. And I did that. I focused on Daniel, and together we made the decision to start trying for a baby. And during month 1, it did not work, but I'll be very honest with you. And I didn't know what taking a kid or what getting pregnant entailed. Like, I thought, if I'm going to be straight up with you, I thought that you could have sex and that's it. You'll get pregnant. I didn't know that you had to, like, there's certain ovulation times or anything. I was very naive, all right? Laugh all you want. I didn't fucking know. And so when we tried the first month and nothing happened, I was really bummed, and I was like, why? Like, why didn't I get pregnant? And the more I started researching it, the more I started realizing what it really entails, and that you have to, be very specific about it. And on month 2, I thought nothing. Like, I took a pregnancy test, nothing. And I was bummed, and I was like, are we going to be the couple that struggles with infertility? I started worrying about that. And I was laying in bed. I was really, really, really sad. Daniel was more uplifting about it. He was like, we'll try again next month. If it doesn't happen, we'll try again the next month. But that's not how I saw it. Again, I started seeing it as my body being a failure to what it should have been doing or what it was supposed to be doing. And I was laying in bed, super sad, and I was going through, I Googled something, and I came upon this article where this girl said that she thought she wasn't pregnant because the pregnancy test showed negative. And she ended up being pregnant, and she found out because her nipples were really sensitive. They were hurting her. And I thought, my nipples feel really sensitive right now. Mine are really hurting me. And she said that she went to go check her pregnancy test again, and that there was a very faint second line there, like the faintest of lines. And so I said, And I went to the trash can. I took out the pregnancy test that I had taken earlier that morning. And I turned on my lamp that was next to the bed. And I put that pregnancy test right up to the light. And it had the faintest line. And I ran to Daniel. I was like, I'm pregnant. I'm pregnant. He's like, no, you're not. Like, it said negative. And I was like, no, look, come, watch. So I put it under the light for him, and he's like, that's not even there. And I was like, let's go buy some more pregnancy tests. So we went to Walgreens and we bought more pregnancy tests. And I ended up buying the ones that say either pregnant or not pregnant. And I said, I'm going to wait till tomorrow morning and I'll take it again. So I woke up the next morning and I took the pregnancy test. I said a prayer to God and I said, please, please. And I peed on the stick. I left it on the counter. I went and I laid in bed and I waited however many minutes you need to wait to see if it's a positive or negative. And I went to the bathroom. I looked on the counter and there it was. And that's that. The next journey begins from there. And I will save that next journey for episode 5. I really hope you guys enjoyed this episode with me today. If you are enjoying these episodes, please subscribe to the podcast. Please leave us a review. So I really hope you guys enjoyed this episode. I'm super excited to bring you episode 5, which will be all about the pregnancy and what a struggle my pregnancy was. So I hope you guys have a great day. I hope you tune in with us again next week. We'll see you soon.